7-5 in the regular season overall. Both teams went 5-3 in their respective conferences. Your thoughts about Buffalo's play this season?
I think if you restart the MAC football season right now, I would have the Buffalo Bulls as the conference favorites. They won 5 out of their last 6 games. Their only loss was a road loss to Kent State, where they blew a 21-point fourth quarter lead and were dominating for the first 3 quarters of that game. So I think the way Buffalo ended the season, the Bulls are just on fire right now. And a lot of that has to do with the offensive line and their running game. Only Air Force allows fewer sacks in the country than the Kyle Van Treese took over in mid-October as a starter. So they just got better and better as the year improved. They weren't allowing sacks. And also, this is the best rushing season the Buffalo Bulls have had in program history. They are the only team in the FBS with 2 1,000-yard rushers, Jarrett Patterson and Kevin Marks. Both of them had passed the century mark in each of their last 2 games, wins over Toledo and Bowling Green. And Jarrett Patterson absolutely went nuclear. In the 49-30 win over Toledo on a Wednesday night on the second last week of the regular season, Patterson had a career-high 192 yards and tied a MAC record with 5 touchdowns. Now, if you thought that performance was good, you had to see what Jarrett Patterson did against Bowling Green. Now, Bowling Green is a bad team and not a good rushing defense, but still, anytime a running back posts 298 yards and shatters the MAC record with 6 touchdowns in 1 game, I mean, Jarrett Patterson, this is a loaded running back class in college football. You have Chuba Hubbard, Jonathan Taylor, J.K. Dobbins, Travis Etienne. But Jarrett Patterson deserves up there. He's top 5 in rushing yards right now. He has 17 touchdowns this year. And Buffalo really runs their offense through him and fellow sophomore running back Kevin Marks. Those are the guys that carry that offense. And I mentioned earlier that Buffalo switched quarterbacks midseason from Matt Myers to Kyle Van Treese. And the team's only lost 1 game since Van Treese has been the starter. They were 2-4 earlier in the season, finished 7-5, and Van Treese has been a reason for that turnaround. Now, he's not one of those guys who will go out and throw for 300, 250, or even 200 yards in a game. But what Van Treese does is he makes smart decisions, and he throws great passes. He only had 1 pick all season, 7 touchdown passes, really good at connecting with his tight end Zach LaFave and wide receiver Antonio Nunn. And I thought Van Treese's running ability, he likes to run those naked bootlegs on 3rd and shorts, 4th and shorts that really help push the team when the defense sells out on Patterson and Marks. I just think Van Treese's decision-making has also led to Buffalo being one of the better teams this year. Then you combine that with a great defense, which Buffalo's defense, they really enforce their will on opposing teams. They're one of the best teams at getting sacks in the nation. Ladarius Mack, which is Khalil Mack's brother, is one of the guys leading that unit. And then Joey Banks from the secondary. He's a ball hawk, always seems to be where the play is and gets a handful of interceptions. Buffalo has a great defense too. It was just if they started the season better, this is a MAC champion, I believe, because this team is built all around well. They really reloaded from last year's MAC East champions team, which lost Tyree Jackson, their quarterback, and wide receiver Anthony Johnson, and a few other players like Khalil Hodge on the defense. But this team has reloaded, and you have to give credit to Lance Leipold because he's done a great coaching job, and they're only getting better and better as the season improves, and that culminates in this Bahamas Bowl on December 20th.
And certainly to your point, Steve, Van Treese taking over with 7 touchdowns, 1 pick, 60% completion percentage, up from Myers' 46% mark with 4 interceptions. Interesting to see a team that rushes the ball so effectively as you outlined there, Steve, with 3,000 rushing yards plus 1,700 yards passing. So we don't see that type of imbalance very often, but the Bulls have made it work with a hot stretch, 5 consecutive wins to finish the regular season at 7-5. Charlotte, as we mentioned off the top, 7-5 as well. And your thoughts about their bowl prospects as they face the Bulls?
Well, the Charlotte 49ers won each of their last 5 games, so they're a team similar to Buffalo where they just kept improving as the season went on. They were getting good wins, and their offense was great at the end of the season. Their running back, Benny LeMay, is really the guy who carries their offense, so we're going to see a great running back matchup in this game. LeMay had over 1,000 yards this season, 9 touchdowns, and also played a pivotal role in the receiving game as he's a frequent target on halfback screens. Their quarterback, Chris Reynolds, he's a serviceable quarterback. He'll pass a lot more than Van Treese in this game, but Reynolds is Charlotte's second best runner. He has over 750 yards on the ground this year, and he's done a great job running zone reads and carrying that offense. So I think that Charlotte's offense is built for this game. Now, I think their defense is a step below Buffalo's. They were allowing over 30 points a game this year, while that was something that Buffalo rarely did. But Charlotte does have the second best player in the nation in terms of sacks. Only trails Chase Young as Alex Highsmith, a defensive end. 15 sacks this year. And I mentioned earlier, Buffalo's offensive line has only allowed 2 sacks since Van Treese became the starter in mid-October. They allow 0.67 per game, 8 sacks in 12 games, which only Air Force has fewer. So Alex Highsmith versus Buffalo's offensive line is a matchup you're going to want to watch. Something's got to give. Either Alex Highsmith's going to have a rough day and getting those sacks that he usually manages, or Buffalo's offensive line is just going to have one of their rougher days that they've seen all season, because Highsmith is that great of a threat. So I think don't be surprised if they do double teams on him. Buffalo's left tackle, Evan Kizarczyk, and their right tackle, Coyote Awasika, those are 2 great guys that Highsmith's going to have to go up to. So I think something to watch in this game is the battle at the line of scrimmage, especially because Buffalo will have so much of their game invested in the run and run blocking. So Charlotte's going to have to counter that attack. But once again, this is Charlotte's first bowl game in program history. This is only their 5th year FBS. In these previous seasons, they were struggling. But you could see from last year, at the end of last year, when they were getting those key wins, I think when they beat FAU late in the season and finished 5-7, you could see that the Charlotte 49ers were improving. And then they go out and they get head coach Will Healy. He's a first-year head coach. He's a young coach, too. He'll be a hot commodity on the market soon. I think Charlotte will do everything they can to retain him, because he's already transformed that program through 1 year. And he transformed an FCS program, Austin Peay, that was winning, 0 or 1 games a year, I think, into a team that was actually respectable at the FCS level. Charlotte took a gamble on a hire on a coach on a lower division, and it worked out well. Will Healy, he had that viral video earlier where he was celebrating in the locker room wearing the Norm the Niner mascot head, and it was just a great scene in Charlotte, seeing them get bowl eligibility for the first time. I don't think there's a better way to kick off bowl season than 2 teams looking for their first bowl win in program history. Buffalo came up short against Troy in the Dollar General Bowl last year. Charlotte hasn't been to this level before. So these teams, this will both be their greatest game in program history when we see it on Friday, December 20th. I don't think we can be any more excited for this matchup.
Steve, Marquise Watts, a definite compliment to Highsmith, rushing the quarterback, 9.5 sacks. Victor Tucker and Cameron Dollar are the deep threats for Reynolds. Tucker averages over 17 yards per reception with 49 catches, and Cameron Dollar with 37 receptions as well. So we've got Buffalo, Charlotte, the records match. What is your lean currently as we look toward Friday?
I'm going to lean on Buffalo. Buffalo has some of the better wins this year that Charlotte didn't quite have. Buffalo did beat Temple 38-22 back in September, which is a surprising result considering Temple's 8-4 in a really good American conference. But Buffalo can just pound teams on the ground to death. And knowing Charlotte's defense, which struggled at times this year, I know they did have to play App State and Clemson, but still against teams like I think it was against North Texas, FIU. Some of those games, the defense just wasn't really on their heels, and I think Buffalo could catch them off guard in the run game with Jarrett Patterson and Kevin Marks. They've been tearing up teams recently on the ground. You saw it with Toledo, you saw it with Bowling Green, and I don't know if Charlotte can counter that offensively on Buffalo's defense, which more asserts its dominance than Charlotte's. Then once again, Buffalo's offensive line is the sturdiest unit in the MAC, and it's going to be a tough game for Charlotte to permeate through that. But still, I think this is going to be a close game. Bahamas Bowls are usually great matchups. Anytime you hear Bahamas Bowl, everyone thinks of that 2014 Western Kentucky Central Michigan game with the Hail Mary 4 lateral touchdown at the end to almost complete a 35-point fourth quarter comeback. And then we had a good game last year with Toledo, FIU, and the Bahamas Bowl's just a great event overall. It's sponsored by Elk Grove Village, Illinois, for some reason. It used to be sponsored by Popeyes, but it's a great game. And one other thing I'd like to say about the Bahamas Bowl is that there's a Reddit thread where you can see people who actually attended the event's comments on it. Like, they practice archery outside of the Bahamas Bowl. I think there's like 20 gates and only 10 of them are actually guarded by security. And I think one fan just walked into the Ohio locker room accidentally the year Ohio and UAB played in it. It's a unique atmosphere in college football. It's what college football is all about, just a fun game. And I don't think there's a better way. I'm leaning wins this one in a tight one to get their first bowl win in program history. And this will be a successful season for both programs. I think who both exceeded expectations this year, considering their rough starts to the season.
Has it been that long since that crazy 49-48 game? I remember seeing 49-14. I was watching the game, and I just had to check out and go to the ball. And then I look at my phone and couldn't believe what just transpired and had to go back and catch the last 5 minutes of the game on DVR because that was one for the ages. Steve Helwick, on the line, joining us to break down the Bahamas Bowl. Steve, we appreciate you stopping by.
Thank you. Appreciate it. Looking forward to bowl season.